Welcome to another episode of the Journeyman Co. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to season two. We've had a little bit of a break. Obviously, Jeff was really busy with Belgium Sevens, but now we're back and we've got some cool conversations lined up, cool little things with coaches, good little educational chats. So, yeah, we'll be back on the airwaves, sharing cool stories and sharing bits of knowledge from really, really good coaches, really great players. So tonight we've got someone that's an unbelievable player, an international. He's traveled the world playing rugby, and he's an unbelievable rugby player. I really enjoyed playing with him. Premiership winner with the winning drop goal, Mr. Freddie Burns. So he's back in the UK,
Yeah.
off season from Japan. So it'll be good chatting to him because he's been through a lot. So Jeff.
Yeah, no, it's we played with Fred down in Bath and the guy's iconic. You think of a character in a change room and the way he is. So he's got a lot of information. He's played the game at the top level for so long. He's been everything in a club. So he's been from academy boy right up to a Premiership winner, international. But the big thing about Freddie is just his heart and the way he's lived his life and lived his career as a rugby player. For me, that was always the most interesting part. It was never his rugby; it's more his character,
Mm.
his family connections. Phenomenal. So we can pick his brain on what he thinks makes you know a journeyman. He's
Mm.
played in Japan, the Highlanders, Bath, a couple of years. He's been all over.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Gloucester.
that's really cool. I'm so grateful that you got him on, and we can chat and use this time wisely to get the best out of him, and for him to maybe share what he hasn't shared in other podcasts. Because nowadays, podcasts are so common. They are, but we try to make it different here. You try to make it something educational, maybe get his routines, these tools, these sort of things that other people haven't unpacked.
Yeah, no,
So
sure.
it's cool. Good to see you. Season two, so exciting. Damn, man, I can't wait. We're going to get some cool people on. I need that. Going into the coaching world now, I can do with some pointers. I can also debrief with some coaches, go through a review process of my first international sevens tournaments, the last two in Hamburg and Croatia.
Yeah, how did
Uh,
they go, by the way? Because we haven't really, well, we haven't had a podcast since you obviously kicked off with your tournaments and things like that. So quickly,
yeah.
but how did they go? First kind of
Yeah,
real
it was great. It was
tournament.
Yeah, it was good. It was, I've played in them with England and Ben Ryan when I first came in. So it's like a full circle now. So I rocked up there, and a lot of the guys I used to play against are now coaching.
Mm.
So, like a few of the Spaniards I played against, now they're coaching in Germany and in Spain and Portugal. So it was really quite nice. It was also GB. So my first game was against GB, which was funny.
Did they give you a bit of stick?
No, not really. It was like, "Hey, how you doing?" No, I'm joking, but it was fun because we got off to a great start, and then we quickly got humbled because you almost, we win our first three games, and you're like, "Wow, this coaching gig's pretty easy." It's you don't think that, something's coming at sevens, but it was fantastic. We got to two quarterfinals, and the margins were tiny, so it was a great experience, and I think myself the boys, the players, the staff. We learned so much, and I think that's the big thing. Is as a competitor, you think you can get your hands in and get stuck in there, but it's really what you learn and how you unpack that and what you can take into the next months ahead. And how we can help players develop and get them better. That's the big thing for me is just helping. Just want to get them to be better humans and better sevens players. So there's a few ideas in the old noggin, but I think that's for another time. I think we can sit down with potentially a couple. We've got a couple guests lined up, and we can actually go through the whole process. It would be quite nice.
Yeah, and Marcus, get Marcus on
Yeah,
chatting with the sevens
exactly.
boys. Try to get a lot of sevens boys on chatting about the circuits and things like that.
Yeah.
But no, it's good that it went well, bro. Because like it's the things you just look for those little improvements every day.
Yeah, well, with sevens, you have like 12 meetings a day. Well, you try to cut that down, but there's meetings after games, before games, and you got three, sometimes three games in a day, two games in a day, and it's all about energy input and output with sevens, and getting the guys up, getting the guys down. And when you're doing it on a short turnaround, so our program um, it isn't full time, so you don't have weeks on end together. You get a couple of days, a week before you're going into a tournament. But the great thing about Belgium rugby is there's so many talented players, really talented players, and interesting mindsets. And if I can just get myself involved there for a longer period, I think we're going to have fireworks. It's going to be great. We've got some great players. I mean, Gaspar, our captain, was a top try scorer, 14 tries over the 2 tournaments. Fantastic. We got Jens. We got so many guys. Juju. There were so many guys that were fantastic. And for me as a coach, it was great seeing that the reward, talking to someone about something, and then them going out there and delivering it. It felt right. It just felt right. It felt like this is where I'm meant to be. And you give so much. I was so exhausted. I think it's easier to play. I think it's easier to you can just go out there and smash someone or run into someone and try to make a difference that way. Now I'm just like shouting on the edge of the field, Inglay, Inglay, and it's like you can't do anything.
Well, like it's funny you say that, because I think when you're playing, you're just so like focused on your job, isn't it? We're always told to just focus on our job, focus on our job. And then the moment you step into the coaching role, now you're thinking of everything, bro. So you're trying to see the whole picture as well, and bring that energy and trying to find little improvements and ways to get the boys better. And so I think
Yeah.
that's what can be quite like a mindset shift in the beginning. You've got to be able to see the whole picture rather than just your job on the field.
I love what you just said because it's so true. And that's the great thing about sevens is I have to be creative. So you have to have new storylines every tournament. You have to have a new theme. You've got to be able to tell the story for the next game. Try find some wood to get the guys motivated. The guy sevens is dark, man. Like people think sevens is a jolly. It's dark. You got to pick yourself up. You're injured. You've lost a game in the quarterfinals in extra time, and you've got to go out and compete for points. The next game. So as a coach, you really have to pick yourself up and try and find creative ways to tell a story, to get the guys up for it, to find satisfaction. Because the slogan that I sort of came in with at damn at Belgium was "We connect, we adapt, we flow," and that for me is really, really it's so huge. I live by that, and especially the way we are right now and where we are in the program, only 4 months in. I got to keep going back to that. You got to keep going back to that. Stay true to what you believe in. It's so easy for you, especially me. I'm such a creator, and I love creating things. You can easily get sidetracked and think of other things that needs to be done or this needs to be done, and you go away from what you stand for. Your principles.
I never really thought about it like what you just said, because in like the 15-man game, you play one game a week, and you can play a big game on a Saturday, and you might lose that game. So you've got a few days to kind of, you know, um, think about it and process all of that. But with sevens, like you've just got to be able to have that next game mentality. Like doesn't like take the learnings that you can, but as you say, your energy's got to be up for the next one, because you could be playing the next game in a couple of hours. So that's a real skill in itself, bro. Like trying to get that right. Because you know what some coaches are like. We lose on the weekend. We don't. They don't come back to. They don't stick their head above ground for a week, bro. So
No eye contact for the first Monday morning.
yeah, could be
Fucking hell, I
awesome.
wasn't even playing, coach.
Oh, anyway,
You
yeah.
guys were shite. You guys prepared us shit. It's your fault. You bin juice journeyman bastards. It wasn't me.
Okay, well, we'll unpack this more as the season goes along, but yeah, let's get on to Mr. Freddie Burns.
Season 2. Let's go, baby.
Okay, so yeah, welcome everybody, and welcome Freddie Burns to the
Ready?
podcast, your first one, hopefully the first of many. It's awesome to have you on, bro. Like Jeff and I both played with you. We know what a character you are. We know how resilient you are. You've been through so many ups and downs in the game, and you're just like a fountain of knowledge, for so many people out there. And yeah, it's so awesome that we can just share bits from your story. You know, we won't get through all of it because there's a lot to unpack. So we'll just get through a little bit tonight. But yeah, Fred, thanks so much for being on. Obviously, just a bit of background, England international, you know, Gloucester, Bath, Leicester, Highlanders, Shocky Shuttles, Cinderford.
Been everywhere, boys. More clubs than
Journeyman.
Tiger Woods, they say, don't they?
No, I think I still beat you on
Yeah,
that.
you might beat me, actually.
No, but Freddie, thanks so much for being on, boy.
No, thanks, boys. I appreciate it. And obviously, two teammates that I've played with over the years, always given a lot. So it's good to see you boys doing well. And it's like, I love what this is about as well, like going a little bit deeper rather than just the sort of superficial stuff. So no, I'm looking forward to it. Both looking well. Jeff's looking remarkably better than you, though. Just FYI, he looks all tanned and looks like he should be in a boy band. You look like you're halfway to a grave. But anyway, we'll carry on.
Hey, boy, I haven't seen the sun in a while, eh? You know the tune.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, no, that explains it. You're looking more northern by the day, mate. Turn into those White Walkers in blooming Game of Thrones or whatever it is.
It's the light, boy. It's the light. Come on.
That's it, yeah.
No, but listen, Fred, before we get into it, how you're obviously back at home now in Bath after a season in Japan, another season in Japan. How did the season go? You know, yeah, good.
Yeah, it was good, boys. It was good. We ended up finishing second overall in our league, so I'm in the second division. And like we lost in the playoff to Honda Heat. We actually beat them away from home in the second game, but by not enough points over the aggregate to go up. But it's probably right for us. Like we in Japan, I'm not sure if you or obviously the people listening know, but you're only allowed 4 foreign players, and of those 4 foreign players, only 3 can be internationally capped. So there's a huge emphasis on your Japanese boys and how good they are. Yeah. We're lucky that we have good Japanese boys, but I reckon we're another season away from being able to go up and then actually make a fist of it up there, because the last thing you want to do is get promoted and get battered every week and just be that kind of yo-yo team. So I reckon another year for us together, sort of building, trying to implement a few things. I reckon, this year we could potentially go and win the league and get promoted as winners.
So when do you go back?
So I go back in September, mate. The season doesn't start till December 21st. Yeah. But I can't complain to get 3 months off, boys. I finished. I was back in England 26th of May. So it's that one where you go in. I don't fancy a 4-month pre-season, but at the same time, I can't complain with 3 months off. What do we get in England? Like 4 weeks, 5 weeks over the years?
Exactly.
And to be fair, you've been training hard. Like you have turned a leaf. You're not so much of a melted candle anymore. You've got
yeah, boys. I've changed. I've actually, well, not too bad. When I come back to England, in Japan, it's so easy because I'm there on my own, and I just sort of push on and try and train hard. And also, the bit that fascinated me most, and we'll probably get onto it in a bit, is because obviously a lot of the boys that I play with are company workers. So when I finish training and go home, they'll finish training and they'll put their overalls on or they'll put their suit on and they'll go to work. And I remember in 2020 when I first rocked up after a bit of a shaky time at Bath and stuff like that, and not really enjoying it and kind of let myself go a little bit. And suddenly there's this guy who's worked, 30 hours a week, whatever it might be, a full-time job, and he's running like a 430 Bronco, training hard in the gym, and suddenly you go, right, hang on, I don't want to be the guy that is, obviously the foreign boys get paid more money than the company workers and all that, and I just never want to be that guy where the Japanese boys are like, he's taking the piss, like he just comes over, he's out of shape. So I actually used it to try and get myself back in decent nick, and I love it, and I feel like the Japanese boys, because of it, have probably had a little bit more respect for me and gives me a little bit more leeway when I do try and implement certain things that they're not used to.
Like gymming in your underwear.
Like gymming, I try and do. I gym, mate. Honestly, boys, I gymmed in my underwear. I got naked once and I put it on Instagram story. Like, obviously, everything was covered, and the best bit is the team he's not the team manager. I guess he's like head of like social media and stuff. He'll text me in Japanese and then you'll translate it. And like, it just says something along the lines of, could you please remove your cock from social media? Do you know what I mean? It was like just straight down, just like this. And I was like, my cock's not actually on it, but like, it just because the way it translated.
Translated, yeah.
It's nuts. But yeah, I try and do stuff like that. Like even, again, I'm no Kobe Bryant or anything like this, but I will go and do, because I do my own gym program over in Japan now because I'm a bit older. I've got someone that I use in the UK who sends me my programs. Is I will make sure I will go in before anyone, because I want the Japanese boys to come in and see that I'm finishing or I'm putting in the work. And that way, because they have such a weird, it's such a different philosophy to the game over there. I know it sounds stupid, but we've just implemented like a kick. You can't believe I'm saying this, boys. But this year, we implemented a bit more of a kicking game.
Yeah.
And we're a bit more structured around that. Basically, just saying that we don't have to try and run it from our own 22 like every time. You can kick the ball. But to get the boys on side, like, you can't just come in as the foreign boy and just be like, we're going to kick it. Like, so I try to get in the gym early, work hard, so that when I ask boys to sprint after the ball and to make the tackles, those first up tackles, or the importance of competing in the air for like high balls, I feel like I can have that conversation with them, because they'll turn around and go, well, he ain't just here for sushi and asahi and all that sort of stuff and just coming in steaming. So I try to show that I'm working hard, and that way I can ask more of the players around me.
Yeah, and how is that adaptation? Like, I understand you've obviously taken on a leadership kind of role, not only with your words but your actions. How has your adaptation been in Japan? Because we all know, like, you're very much family orientated. Your family gets behind you. You guys love each other, and you're always very supportive of each other. Obviously, now you're in a foreign country, away from what your comfort zones. How have you adapted to life over there? How have you like kind of adjusted to the rugby and things like that?
Yeah, it's like, no, firstly, thanks. It's nice to know that sort of, like the fact that people recognise how important family is and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's always nice to hear.
Boy, Donna Burns.
I know, mate. She'll poke her head in a bit, probably, no doubt. She'll come down with a jam sandwich for me. I've just had dinner. She'll come down with a jam sandwich and a packet of crisps. No, so I'll tell you what, boys, it's tough, and again, you go back to all this sort of social media stuff as well, and messing around all the time and all that. But it is tough. It's such a foreign country, such a foreign language, culture, philosophy around rugby. The refereeing is terrible. Some of the coaching stuff that we do is very old school. And, I was lucky to have that year with Leicester in 22. And the way Steve Borthwick coaches, there's a reason why he's the England coach now. But you suddenly go from this real mega elite environment with, that Leicester team had Dan Cole, Ellis Genge, Julian Montoya, Jasper Wiese, Ben Youngs, George Ford, like all these like top of the game players. And then you go into a place where, like, 3/4 of your team are company workers. Your coach hasn't got huge experience. So you're like, the frustration and adaptation to that is pretty tough, and it takes a little while. But then there's that saying, isn't there? And I love, me, boys, I love a few sayings, but the old comparison is the thief of joy. So rather than going, fuck me, we didn't do this at Leicester. Oh, at the Highlanders we did this. Oh, when Aaron Smith's at 9, he passes me the ball like this. It's like, no, just take it for something completely different. Take it for what it is. Try and implement bits of game plan where you can. And the best thing about it is, because the boys are so diligent in Japan and they want to get better. When I remember game 3 last season, we played NEC Green Rockets. They beat Shockey the year before twice or 3 times. I think every time was maybe over 35 points. First half, at half time, we were 25-3 down. Okay. And basically, we just come in and we said, look, if we actually start kicking the ball longer and doing this and playing in the right areas, we'll get opportunity. We end up winning the game 36-28 or something. And you saw the switch flick in the Japanese boys' minds that, if we actually are diligent with our kicking game and we execute what we want, like, we can beat these teams. And for them to go from losing from how much they did before to beating them, you suddenly get this huge sense of reward because, you know, you feel like you've brought in a bit of a game plan. And I'm not saying it's all down to me. There's some other great signings, and, you know, James Gaskell's there and stuff like that. But you can make small changes and see huge gains.
Yeah, of course.
Whereas in the Premiership and stuff, everything's micro, isn't it? It's always minor gains and you know, all this sort of stuff. So it's rewarding to see when you get it right, and the boys see it getting right. You see the joy on the Japanese boys' faces going out and beating them. It was amazing. Like, it was a real proper buzz after the game.
And life in Japan, you obviously, you know, you're naughty for some Instagram videos. Have you made a lot of friends, and have they welcomed you and things like that? And what kind of like lessons have you learned, you know, from being there? You know,
well,
sorry, Freddie, I like listen to you speak now, and you really grounded now, boy. And the way you see things, you've certainly got a unique or different perspective. You know, how much have you grown from, like, you know, being over there and playing rugby there with the kind of players that you're playing with?
Right, massively. And you boys know as well, like, obviously, when you go to different clubs and you adapt to different environments. So I think it's great when you see guys 300 appearances for one club. Brilliant. Like, fantastic. But to play with the players that I have and have those experiences, the highs, the lows, you know, certain moves working well, other moves not working well. You know, I grew up a Bath lad. Me becoming a significant player for Leicester in their history through what happened in the final should never have worked. But me coming back to Bath as a Bath boy should have been the move of a lifetime. And it was the worst period of my career. So you just realise that you've got to roll with the punches a bit. But yeah, I think in Japan, it definitely grounds you. More so because you realise, boys, that, be honest with you, we get probably 1,500, 2,000 to a game if we're lucky. You don't really get, you get no social media stuff. So you're not on your phone after the game wanting to find good, you know, it's like after a Premiership game, you have a sneaky look and you hope everyone's saying, oh, what a brilliant player, and you get a little bit of shit. You don't get that. You're not reading the paper for a rating. You know, you hold yourself accountable, which I think is like massive. And also, you know, slightly off piece, but winning that Premiership with Leicester just took, like, I wouldn't say I necessarily had a chip on my shoulder, but it was something that I always wanted to achieve. And I feel like with certain things that happened at Bath, obviously the Toulouse game and all that, I felt like it was a real, like, now I don't feel like I'm looked at as the lad who dropped the ball against Toulouse. I'm the lad who kicked the drop goal to win the Premiership for Leicester. And I feel like with that then becomes this sense of, like, bit of zen, a bit of calm, a bit of relax. And I just think, you know what? Like, I'm just going to enjoy it now. I've achieved what I've done. I've had my ups and my downs. And now it's time to just enjoy the game for what it is. And, you know, what I said about the social media side of things, I play the game in Japan because I love it. Because I actually fallen back in love with just playing with my mates. That feeling when you win together, you know, seeing what it means to these Japanese boys because they care so much. So it definitely, my view on it has definitely changed a lot.
Yeah, Fred, just jumping in there, sorry, Mike. When I hear this, and I'm similar to Mike, I saw you at the Baths sort of phase of your career, and seeing you now and hearing you speak and feeling your love for the game and seeing the transition and the adaptation is, as a mate, it's fucking great. You know, I can see that. I can see you actually care about the people you're playing with and for. And I always felt that with you. I always felt like when you were in the change room, you were a great adapter. You were the best at knowing the room, knowing people. You could speak to me, you know, a journeyman. You could speak to the top brass. you got that so well, and I'm sure this period in your life is probably the most where it's almost like you've had you had your time in the sun. You've let that, in terms of let the Premiership wash over you, and now you've gone to Japan and you really felt the love for the game and all that. So for me, hearing this, it's beautiful. It's really good. Just going into the Japan thing, for me as a coach now, I really would love to hear your routines. What are you doing now? Because obviously, different country, food, a huge preseason, a long preseason. What are you doing on your day-to-days? What does your day look like from waking up, going up until training, getting back home, your recovery? What are you doing now? And with all your experience too.
Yeah. No, firstly, thanks, mate. Like I always, one thing I'll answer it in two parts. So with the sort of how I feel now is I always felt like a little bit that because of the way I was, and maybe a little bit on social media and stuff like that, and this might just be me having a bit of imposter syndrome or whatever you want to call it, but I never felt like, especially in the sort of Bath days and a couple of days at Leicester and stuff, I always felt like I was seen as a bit selfish, and I felt like I was the ultimate. Not the ultimate, but I always felt like, Jeff, you were the ultimate team man. I'll be honest with you, mate. But I always felt like I was a good team man.
You were.
I felt like if the boys needed me, I'd be there. Like, Bath was a bit different because I had family near me, so I didn't necessarily. One regret at Bath, I'd say, is I didn't invest in the boys outside of the game as much as I wish I probably should have, because I would go out with my brothers, see my schoolmates, because I was local. But I always felt that coaches in particular always had me down as like a selfish player in certain ways, and that's just how I felt. So now I just try not to be that and really try and paint even more so like the team man picture, and that's easy to do now because I've achieved my personal goals that I wanted. And then tying that into Japan, I think that my routine now is, I'll be honest with you, I wake up early. The best thing about Japan, boys, the sun shines 90% of the time. It's cold, and like when it rains, it properly rains and all that. But even in the winter, you wake up at 6 a.m., whatever it might be, and the sun's shining, so it makes it easy. Yes. But I work with a girl called India Allen on my strength and conditioning.
Okay.
She's been brilliant. She's given me direction in the gym. She's someone who I can talk to on a one-on-one and just be like, look, I'm feeling like I want to go more to take it now. I'm back now, and we've just started a bit more of a strength period of time where we're chasing after a few higher numbers with a bit more weight.
Benching 50. Benching 50.
Mate, squats, deadlift, and I'm chasing the PB 55 tomorrow kgs on the bar, not the dumbbells. Yeah, no, on the bar.
Man's strong, bruv. Man's strong.
Exactly, mate. But so she's been a great help. The big one I've found as I've got older, and I feel like as you get older and you realise it's not forever. Like I'm desperate to play this game for as long as I can because, like I said, like I love it. And suddenly you realise, you can't get away with going out on the smash on a Saturday night after a game, rolling in at 4 or 5 in the morning, waking up, having 2 takeaways on a Sunday and rocking it. Like, don't get me wrong, when I was 19, 20, 21 at Gloucester, it was brilliant. It was the time of my life. But you start realising that actually what I put into my body is like massively important. And boys, I still love a drink. Do you know what I mean? I love absolutely sending it with the boys. But in Japan, I just tried to just really nail down on my diet. The food's so good there. Like the supermarket food's good. It's pretty cheap. So I just tried to make sure that I get my diet right so I feel good. And then when I feel good, my mood's better. And then when I'm in it training, I'll train with the team as normal. But if I ever need to do little top-ups after, I'll pick them up myself now. Nice. So I'll just do, but real simple stuff, boys. Maybe, if I feel like I've not ran much in a session, I'll do 10 50s, 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off. It's not hard. It's not like but it's going at a pace that is enough just to get a few high-speed running meters in, and just so I know that I've ticked those boxes going into a Saturday.
Yeah. Just with that, and listening to you talking about your training, and at this age now, I think you know yourself better than you ever have. The best coaches for you, being a maverick, because there's no doubt you're a maverick. You could do stuff that other people couldn't do, and when you're feeling good, you play good, almost like I'm going to compare you to a Cantona of a team, or something like a really special sort of player. And I know you love Ronaldo and those sort of players, like a flary sort of things. What were the best coaches, and how do they treat you to get you feeling and playing at your top level? Because now it's easier for you, right? Because you're more experienced, you know how to do it yourself. You've got your own trainers, you've got this. But when you were in that period and you were looking around, what sort of coaching and what sort of techniques or management would work for a maverick like yourself?
Yeah, it's a great point, and I think that's probably the one thing I see in rugby that I think personally rugby gets wrong, is I think rugby tries to keep everyone the same.
Yes.
They're very much, you all do this, like they don't actually embrace the individual. And you'll get it within like you'll get slight changes. A prop's not going to be treated the same as a winger, for example. But I reckon a lot of the time, how many times you go in the gym and all the backs have the same program. Whereas, there might be a back with, struggle with Achilles problems, but he'll still be doing the same thing as someone who hasn't got it. Do you know what I mean? Like, for years it was like that. And I was very lucky, and I mean this, is to play under Steve Borthwick at Leicester was, well, that whole coaching setup. So it was Steve Borthwick, you had Aled Waters, who was obviously head of performance at the Springboks when they won the World Cup. Someone like Kev Simfield, who literally run through a brick wall for no matter what.
Why is he so special? Why is he so? What is it about him? Obviously, we've seen stuff, but why?
Like, it's hard to. What you see with Kev is exactly what you get. He is like, and you think that what his career was in rugby league before, if anyone's got the right to be a bit arrogant, a little bit. But I remember he stood up in the first defence meeting at Leicester and he was like, boys, listen, like, my career's been rugby league. Like, I believe I can coach you well in a defensive thing, but I'm going to need your help. Like, I need boys to like step in, step up. And he was always about, like, he always used to say like left help the right, right help the left. So if someone missed a tackle on the left touchline, the first thing he'd look at is how many numbers are on the short side on the right. And it's like, boys, you're just stood there. You've got, there's only 3 attackers on the short side, but there's, 6 defenders. Like, I'm not even going to bother looking at the missed tackle here because 2 of you should have folded and we should be numbers on to go and get them. And he was never he never cracked the whip in that sense. It was always an arm around you and a chat.
Yes.
And
so it sounds like a man of a lot of honor, bro. A lot of honor, a lot of honesty, a lot of a lot of trust. You know what I mean? He is what he says.
We've seen what he did with his mate Rob Burrows, bro. It's incredible.
But the thing is with Kev is I always say this, that year 21-22, I had like the best, because he would always stay out with me doing my goal kicking after a session. So he'd stay out with like me and Fordy and stuff. He'd stand next to us, collect the balls, make sure we have enough balls. So for like 3-4 times a week for about 20 minutes, it would be probably me, Fordy, Kev, or, sometimes just me and Kev. And you just chat. And I just got to talk to him about, like, his career, the challenges he was doing. I got to speak to him about Rob and stuff like this to a certain degree. And it was just like, he's just so impressive. But going back to Steve Borthwick, so Steve that year, the thing that most impressed me about Steve, there's 2 parts to this. The first thing is Steve is so aware of who he is as a person. So he knows that he is pretty straight-laced. You know, he's not someone to be running around and joking. He's quite, you know, he's very smart in how he addresses the media and how he addresses the boys, and he enjoys having a bit of banter and getting a bit competitive. But he's not your flamboyant coach.
Yeah.
So he goes and gets in Aled Waters. Now Aled is like a puppy on crack. Like
Okay.
he's the best of people, but he's the guy where like you'll come in the gym on a cold, wet Tuesday, and Aled will be in the corner shirtless doing curls. And then like being like, and like he used to heckle Steve in meetings and that sort of stuff, and he really brought the energy. And then you had Kev, who we've touched on, who again was Kev had a really good balance of like he's the guy you always want him to just say something good about you.
Yeah.
But like even if you missed a tackle, it was never you need to make this tackle. It was just like, Fred, you reckon you can make that tackle on? Yeah, Kev, I'll make it. Like generally, I'll make it. Do you know what I mean? It was you never felt like you actually did.
Very smart, yeah.
And then you had Rich Wigglesworth, who was obviously player coach, and obviously you had Brett Deacon and Matt Smith, a couple of Leicester like legends in and around that had their input, and Tom Harrison at the scrums. But Steve had amassed this group that just the balance was like nothing I've ever seen. So, you know, Steve was you get the dreaded tap on the shoulder on a Tuesday before a meeting, and he's going to name the team, and you're thinking, oh, play, do you know what I mean? But he would go out and have a walk with you and have a chat, and then 5 minutes later you get Aled heckle him in a meeting, and then you get Wiggy play a silly game to get everyone engaged before a team meeting, and then you get Kev who would just keep it very short, simple, like matter of fact. And I appreciate that. But going back to that's long-winded, but going back to it, I'll never forget when Steve called me in Japan to ask me if I wanted to come back to Leicester, and the first thing he said was, he goes, "We've got brilliant players, but we need a bit of personality." And he's like, "We want you to come and like be yourself. We want you around the group." And a coach has never said that to me before. You know, you kind of like, I remember once in the gym, I'd get down to my pants, like I'm in boxers, I roll them up, I tuck them into my ass, and I start doing stupid dance moves like I do. And I turn around and Steve's in the corner. But Steve's in the corner with just like a smirk on his face and a little shake of the head. Do you know what I mean? So he liked to see boys enjoy it. But because he said that to me, that year at Leicester, I felt like I could just be completely myself, right? But then also, we had a bye week. I went to Nashville with my brother, sent it, came back, tested positive for COVID, missed 2 games, came back. They played me against Connaught, and I was terrible. And Bryce Hegarty went to 10 for the last 20 minutes and played well. And I remember Steve come up to me on the Tuesday, and he was like, "Mate, you fucked up going to Nashville and getting COVID." He was like, "You fucked up. You didn't play well. Bryce is going to be on the bench. 40 will start. We need you to be 24th man on Christmas Eve or Boxing Day, Bristol away, right?" Which in a weird way, boys, kind of worked because I hadn't had a Christmas off in about 10 years, and it's right. Bristol's 20 minutes from my family home, so I just went and sent it with my family for the day, and rocked up, bit hungover, and did the warm up. But like, Steve was so straight. So straight. Like, why am I dropped? You fucked up. You went to Nashville, you got COVID, and you played like shit. Like, don't get me wrong, boys. I was fuming. I chopped the man in Andolo 3 times in that training session. That's the one training session I've ever taken my gum shield to training. Like, I was fully prepared to like lose my career in that session. And even Kev now, we still joke about it. He's like, "Why don't you fucking tackle like that in a game?" Like, I was fuming. But like, it was just such a good, like, honest, honest thing. And Steve just appreciated boys being themselves. Even when I got selected, obviously 40 was the main man. Even when I got picked to play, he was like, "Listen, you know the game plan. I expect you to execute the game plan, but go out there and be yourself. I don't want you to be 40. I want you to go out and be yourself." And I just felt this real sense of like, not pressure, because there's always pressure. You never want to let anyone down. But there was just this thing where, you know what, I'm actually can be myself here, and do it. And when I fuck up, he'll rein me in. But I remember I had to call boys. So on the backs group. So obviously Rich Wigglesworth. Sorry, I'm waffling here, but Rich Wigglesworth was obviously player coach. Now I toured Argentina. I think played against the Barbars in 2013 with Wiggy. Toured with him a couple of times with England. So we were really good mates. And one day he put on the backs group after a game. He was like, lads, great performance. If we perform like this, teams are going to be scared of us. Like a real sort of like a nice message. And I just cut back to myself and thought about, Wiggy, the teammate. So I just put that clip of that guy going, gay, like this, right? On the WhatsApp group, right? Now the worst bit is, boys laughed at it, but they sent me the laugh in private. Right? I'm like, nah. Anyway, 10 minutes later, I get a phone.
Screenshotted those replies.
Yeah.
The boys loved it.
Wrong. Yeah, I got it. I got it wrong. But next thing I get Matt Smith call me up, and he's like, "Oh mate, just give Wiggy a call." Like, he kind of overstepped the mark there a little bit. And to be fair, I called Wiggy. He was like, "Mate, listen." He goes, "I know there's." Do you know what I mean? It wasn't. But it was never like an issue. Whereas I feel like at Bath or something like that, it would be this big thing where I called Wiggy and I said, "Look, Wig," I said, "Fuck, I'm sorry, mate. I just, and he just turned around and said, look, I understand, but he was having to balance that player coach role, which is a very rare role in rugby at that level. And he was like, I'm just trying to balance it. And I just think and I'm like, Wiggy, I fully get it, mate. Like I got it wrong.
Yeah.
But it was kind of it was funny, but
very funny, yeah.
But it was always like that. It was always like that. Like there was just no, the week of the final, Steve stands up and says, whatever ticket request you've got, tell Teresa, who's the team manager. Right, I think the club bought something ridiculous. I think they bought an extra 100 or 150 tickets to make sure that every player had who they wanted at the game. But it was done. It was, give her your request, we'll sort it.
Yeah.
There was none of this remember at Bath, we used to do these free monthly check-ins where they're telling you about how the club's going and what they're selling in the shop and what's going on with the stadium. And I'm going, we just want to play.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So that side of things with Steve and that Leicester group was, I just thought, opened my mind up to a whole different way of coaching. And just, if I was to ever coach, I would definitely take a lot of stuff from Steve and Kev and Wiggy and Alid, 100%.
That's high praise. But Freddie, how often, we've said it a few times, like the best coaches and the most successful coaches are the best selectors, but not only of the players or the team, it's the selecting of their coaching staff and their backroom staff and getting that balance right. And as you said, that you've been around, so to have such high praise for that coaching group proves why they are where they are. You've touched on Leicester. I kind of wanted to build up to that because
sorry.
No, it was incredible. But obviously, for me, seeing you win the Premiership with Leicester was like something out of a script after I had witnessed what had happened with you at Bath, because it was like the ultimate redemptive story. You had been at Leicester, you'd left Leicester, you had arrived at Bath with, we were there, a lot of fanfare, we were all excited. And, we'll touch on Bath a bit now, but it probably, everyone can admit, obviously didn't go how you wanted it to go, being a Bath boy. And then to go through like that effectively ended your career in England. You had to go over to Japan and then to come back and win the Premiership. It was like,
Bro, I'm just gonna jump in here because I'm gonna add. It was like, honestly, like I was watching it, I was like, motherfucker. When he runs off into the the movie when he runs off into the sunset, and there was his last fucking. So for me, it was almost like the underdog story. I love underdog stories. The man I am, the player I am. when I saw that, because I know you, and I know how much it meant to you, probably being at Bath, and how closely you held that whole those years at Bath, and then for you to do that, it was that moment I was watching from afar, because I've been in France, also very disconnected to my old life in Bath, so different, right? It's like a different person I am today, and I looked at it and it was like almost like that little nod of motherfucker, the cowboy in the dust, him riding off into the sunset, just a little check you later, boys. I loved it. I just had to give that. Well, you can answer
thanks,
it. But
mate.
one of
No,
the pieces.
it was 100% agree with Jeff, because obviously, like when I arrived in England in 2015 at Leicester after Kings went into bankruptcy, one of the boys that kind of took me under his wing was Freddie, and he had no reason to do that. So when he came to Bath, I was obviously really excited, and we were close. Freddie, as he said, was more family orientated, but I got on really well with Fred. And when he went through that thing with Toulouse, it was devastating, and the way that people jumped on his back, and we'll touch on that now. But then to see, how you were able to rise, it's like every sportsman wants that story where you can just be like, what now? You know what I mean? Exactly.
Yeah, no,
Exactly.
boys.
So it was hard. It was hard not to like feel emotional about it, because it's like it was an incredible story. But okay, enough of that. His head's big enough. We'll go
I
back.
was going to say, fucking hell.
Let's talk about.
Let him talk, Mike. Let him talk.
No,
He's ready to go.
No, Mikey, go.
Let's talk about Bath, because obviously your hometown club. It was tough. Talk about what you learned there, and then that pivotal moment, dropping the ball over the line against Toulouse, and how that affected you.
Yeah, I think the whole Bath thing was funny because I never wanted to leave Leicester. I was playing well at Leicester.
Didn't you get sacked over Nando's or something?
Yeah, so basically, JP Peterson. I was really close with JP when he was at Tigers, and I met up with him one night, and he was like, "Oh, are you going to Bath?" And I was like, "No, why?" And he's like, "Oh, I spoke to my agent today, and he said that potentially you're going to Bath and Fordy's coming to Leicester." And I was like, no, I've not heard anything. And I thought, sweet, nothing of it. And Jenny went away, and probably 6 weeks, 2 months later, he calls me up and he's like, "Mate, just so you know, like, my agent said that this is like a done deal." So I've called my agent and I've gone, Robbo. I said, call Leicester and find out what's going on, because obviously I heard this 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, it's gone away and now it's come back. I get a phone call 20 minutes later, "Fred, I'm on the train up to Leicester now." And they're just sort of like, fuck. So I met him and they said, yeah, they want to swap you. Simon Cohen wants to meet you for a chat tomorrow. I was like, all right. So I met him at Nando's. He's fucking smashing his face with a spicy rice and a blooming butterfly chicken breast. I think it was lemon and herb, something like that. Do you know what I mean? I was just like, whatever. Anyway, but yeah, they said that they basically Fordy wanted to leave Bath for whatever reason. Leicester wanted to get him, and they saw it as a good time to, and they probably saw me being a Bath boy as a chance to go down there and, a sort of dream move. But I was playing so well at Leicester, and I just had I had a great time at Gloucester. Like, Gloucester gave me everything. But there's just something with Leicester, and I'm sure you boys have had it with certain clubs as well, but it was just like, it just felt like right the whole time. And I didn't always play well, and like we were shit for a few years that I was there. And, I remember when Bath beat us by 40 odd 50 points down at the Rec and all that. But like, I just loved the club. Like, I had this real, affinity with the club. So to be told, that I was leaving or that they wanted to get rid of me was tough. And, I got voted supporters player of the year that year and all that sort of stuff. So it wasn't like I was playing terribly and they wanted to get rid of me. But anyway, so it started then. So I go down to Bath and I'm similar to you. I'm excited. I'm fucking now. Like, what a chance to go and play for my hometown club. And I got there and, just almost from the start, it didn't feel like a great fit. I don't know why. It just didn't. Do you know what I mean? When I look back now and I just think, and then obviously, boys, the main thing is, we'll get on about that drop ball against Toulouse as well. I for whatever reason, it just didn't happen for me. So I'm not sure. Remember, I got fucking sent off on debut. Do you know what I mean? I started against Worcester round 3 or 4, and I tackled Josh Adams and got red carded, 3-match ban or whatever.
Yeah.
And that almost kind of just set the tone a little bit. And like, you know, I always look at it and take responsibility. You know, I should have been that good that they couldn't not pick me. Do you know what I mean? But I did feel like there was this kind of, I don't know. I always just felt up against it a little bit. And that's not me blaming anyone but myself, but it just never really quite went the way I wanted it to. And then I tied that in a little bit with the way they sort of treated boys around the club, you know, out of the playing group. I didn't like it. I don't like Bruce. Do you know what I mean? I'll be honest with you. I saw that bloke 3 times the whole time I was at Bath. All 3 of them were in Walcott House nightclub. Do you know what I mean? And he's the owner of the club. You know, I didn't like the way that he, you know, we'd be training out the front of Farley House, and he'd come bombing in on his Mercedes, park it out the front, go in, do whatever he had to do, and like he wouldn't even hang around to say hello to the boys after training. He'd be straight in his car, doing blooming donuts out the car park, pretty much. Do you know what I mean? Like, but like, it's him, and like what he's done for that club's been brilliant. Like, you know, the investment that he's put in and all that sort of stuff. Like, no doubt about it. But I think I just came from a club like Leicester that was real sort of salt of the earth, hard working. You know, Peter Tom, the owner of Leicester, I just think is one of the best people in the world. Like, love him to bits. And then you sort of go there, and it just felt a little bit like, yeah, it just didn't quite happen. And then, you know, but you learn a lot about yourself. You know, people say now, what's the proudest moment in my career? I always turn around and say it's my resilience. You know, it could be, yeah, I've had moments that I love, you know, the drop goal, debut for England, playing with my little brother, these sorts of things. But, you know, like I say, when Stuart Hooper called me in the March of 2020 during COVID and told me that there wasn't anything for me at Bath, like, I fucking knew there wasn't nothing for me at Bath. You could have told me in November, do you know what I mean, you prick? But, like you said, you then have to go stare down the barrel of going to play for a Division 2 Japanese team. Like, boys, I tell you now, that was fucking hard. Like, I know you boys have been through it as well, through the clubs that you've been at, but like, Jesus, I was you know, I remember rocking up to Shockey for the first few weeks, months, and I was thinking, what's it come to? But again, I was like, fuck it, I'm here, I'm going to enjoy it. Loved it. And, you know, when you think positive, you know, things start happening for you. And then suddenly this whole Leicester Tigers thing come in, and I went from there. But the one thing Bath taught me was the resilience. And I was fortunate as well, because I always feel bad about when I talk about Bath. The playing group at Bath was brilliant. I think we had such a good, like, playing group. You know, there was a load of characters. You know, I remember, you know, a few days on the source and stuff like that. And we used to go for those little trips abroad in the bye weeks, and that, like, it was brilliant. I don't think I ever give the boys enough credit for that. But above the playing group, like the players, I felt like it was an absolute shambles at times. But yeah, it just didn't happen for me at the end of the day, and I guess that's the only way I can really put it. It wasn't through like lack of effort or anything like that. It just didn't really go for me.
Well, that happens, bro. And how much, like, obviously, with you coming back to your hometown club, do you think you put a lot of pressure on yourself to perform? And I don't think there's anything wrong with putting pressure on yourself.
100%.
But sometimes, like a player like you need to have that freedom to express yourself. And if you have that pressure on your shoulders, it can sometimes feel like, you know, the walls are closing in, so to speak.
Mate, I'll tell you what it is, right? I'll be honest with you, like, I need to feel love. Do you know what I mean? From a coach, or just like, and I know I go on about him a lot, but like, just like Steve, like, so, you know, when he spoke to me on the phone about coming back, obviously the first thing was George Ford's there, and I was like, look, Steve, I'm playing every week here. I'm getting paid a lot of money here. I'm going to take a pay cut to come back and play less rugby. Do you know what I mean? But Steve was very good at, now listen, mate, obviously, you know, chances are Fordy's going to be away with England. We see you filling in at fullback with Freddie Stewart as well. And like you'll be a key part, and like he just gave me like a role in the team and gave me value even when I wasn't playing. You know, Prem final, I'm on the bench, but I knew that I would probably most likely be coming on with 10, 15, 20 minutes to go, potentially at fullback with Freddie Stewart moving to the wing to play a kicking game to see out the game. So there was always, and I think that's one of the hardest things as coaches in rugby. You have such a big squad, trying to keep everyone happy. And I know boys that weren't in the 23 wouldn't have been happy, but that was the thing. It was more value. And at Bath, I just never felt that value from coaches and stuff. And like, you know, we'd be losing games and they'd change everyone in the back line bar the 10. And sometimes a bit like, fuck me, just give me a shot. But, you know, so it was.
But first of all, just jumping in there, I remember those times, and I remember analyzing, and I've always been like quite sensitive to people, and I always felt for you that way too. It always felt like it was a move that the coach, because it was almost like the club constructed it to get rid of the whole George Ford, Mike Ford thing, and you had to pay the price. And you came into a place where it was almost like Reese had been waiting for his turn, and you came in there, and now Reese has come in, and as a winger, you know, I'm like a wide receiver. I'm just trying to make friends with the quarterbacks. Like I'm like, what's happening with Freddie? You know, do we like him? Is he in? And I thought, my honest opinion was, they did the wrong thing with you, because it felt like they were, they didn't give you that love, or didn't give you that sort of like, listen, this is what your role is. They weren't clear with you. They were almost feeling you out as well. And you know, the New Zealanders, they are a little, you know, Todd was a cool guy. He did like Mavericks and stuff, but I felt like sometimes the jokey and all that type of stuff wasn't really well received. I don't know. I felt like that. But for me, it was never your ability, because it was clear that you are an international 10. Like the things you could do were mind blowing. You're a maverick, you know. So it was clear for me to see that. I think it was a psychological thing, just the feeling of Bath and Leicester and George and Mike, and getting rid of all those pieces. It was so unfortunate for you, because there's no place that George wanted to go but Leicester. He's not going to play for Saracens, is he, or fucking Bristol Bears? So. But what did it teach you? It fucking gave you resilience, bud. It gave you so much, and it's given you a chance to go back and win the Premiership and give you your moment in history. And for me, as a mate of yours, I'm just so fucking proud of you to go through all those moments, and to be a poster boy for young guys that don't get it their own way. You know, you're not an Anthony Watson or a George Ford who could. You're close to them actually. You're not so far away. I mean, you're international fucking rugby player. So. But see that. Great.
No, I appreciate that, mate. And I think another thing with the Bath thing as well that I struggled with, now we're talking about, is I remember Todd, you boys were playing maybe Sale or someone, and Todd drove up with Matty Egan to meet me in the hotel in Leicester to discuss it. And he told me a story. He basically said, listen, me and the coaches have sat down and we had a roster of what 10s we want at Bath if George was to leave. And he was like, you are our number one. You're a Bath boy. You know, we want you. We want to build the team around local players. And, you know, I used to sit in team meetings where they're talking about, X% of the squad is local. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not fucking, do you know what I mean? Like, and that was the bit, it gave me that, like, I went to Bath being gutted that Leicester got rid of me, but being like, you know what, though? There's a coach there who is going to believe in me and, like, give me that little bit. And don't get me wrong, getting sent off on debut is probably not great for your cause going forward. Do you know what I mean? But it kind of felt like straight away it was like, you know, I don't feel like I ever really had that, like, run of games to, like, really settle in. But like you say, mate, you look back now and all you can say is it just makes the story even sweeter and even better. And again, mate, shitter things are going to happen to me in my life going forward. And if, you know, that going through that as a sort of relatively young man sets me up for things later in life and being resilient and having that string to the bow, then it's only a positive, really.
Well, you say that, Freddie, and like obviously, the defining moment of your Bath career was, what happened against Toulouse, dropping the ball over the line. And this is a great lesson for youngsters because people are so afraid of failure. They're so afraid of making mistakes that they don't actually step out there and try anything. That mistake was essentially a catalyst for your second act of your career, which one could argue has been more impressive than your first act. If your second act was Japan, Highlanders, winning the Premiership and the bounce back. When you're in that moment, you're obviously feeling terrible. And we don't need to go into how, everyone can imagine how bad it feels if you essentially lose a game for your team and your city. What helped you get out of that? Because that, I think, is where, a lot of people experience dark moments. Not everyone knows how to get out of them. What helped you get out of that, back onto the horse, and essentially on your way to becoming a Prem winner?
So I think there's there's two or three sort of catalysts or people that, first and foremost, like the boys, like my teammates were like brilliant. Do you know what I mean? Like I remember on the Tuesday in training, I think I broke through in the rain, and I broke through on about halfway, and I just kept running. And like they blow the whistle for you to go down, and I just kept running and just slid on the floor, and then all the boys come in behind, and we sort of celebrated. It was kind of like quite a nice sort of moment. But I think so they were brilliant. I was obviously lucky to be really close to family, and have them around. That's one thing that I'll always be grateful for. But I think the main thing is, like, I took responsibility as quick as I could. It fucking hurts, boys. Like, even now, there's that little bit, like, obviously the drop goal now, I could talk about it a bit more free because, it doesn't fucking matter now. But like before that, but it's still a bit of a, like, I don't know, it still hurts, boys. Do you know what I mean? It's still kind of like a sort of, a shit stain on my career, if you want. Do you know what I mean? Like, but that's all it is. And no one can really. But I think you have to. Responsibility is the main thing. The good stuff, but like you just have to say, boys, I fucked up. Like, end of. I should have ran, dived, whatever. Like, it's incredible play from Madar, to be fair, because he hit my hand, not the ball. Which is, if you hit the ball, it's a penalty try because you can't do that. But you take responsibility, and I think the hardest thing for me was people were telling me how I felt. So I'm not sure if you remember, I actually missed a pretty easy kick at goal about 2 minutes before.
Yes.
And then suddenly I broke through, and obviously the papers and people that want to see you fail were writing about arrogance and celebrating early and all this sort of stuff. Boys, I tell you now, the only feeling I had was relief. I broke through, and I just felt, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I've saved it from. Yeah. Because that at that moment, missing that kick was probably the worst moment of my career. Do you know what I mean? So I had relief, and then suddenly like that, boom, it's gone, and what happened. But Ben Youngs always used to say to me, he used to take the mick, and at Leicester, the boys were very good at taking the piss out of me for it. But he always used to say, he was like, mate, you dropped the ball in round 1 of Europe. It wasn't like it was the final. Or like, don't you know what I mean? Like, people are making it out like it's the final. We still lost the other 5 group games that year and fucking failed disqualified. Do you know what I mean? Like, so there was always a bit of humour to be sort of found in it. I find it hard now because my mates and that, I have no issues taking the mick out of me. Like, I remember the Christmas after, I was in a pub and I was trying to carry a few pints to the table, and I dropped one, and the whole pub went quiet and turned. It was the curfew in Bath. And my older brother Jack just went, oh, look, he's dropped another one. And literally, the whole fucking pub is erupted. And I could take it, but I find it funny now, mate. I still get tweets. Still get tweets and DMs where people just send me the YouTube link to me dropping the ball. And like, I'm just kind of like, oh, like, get over it. But yeah, on a serious note, I think the main thing is with that sort of stuff, sometimes you just have to put your hands up, say you fucked up. And I actually sent Todd a message. I begged him to start me the week after against Wasps, and I think Reese had picked up a bit of a niggle, so they had to play me. And I think I kicked 7 from 7, and we drew from Wasps. We drew of Wasps away, and yeah, I was always quite confident in myself bouncing back, as much as it took its time. And like, I feel like you're always dealing with that. You know what it's like, right? When you play rugby and you go out places and you can see almost someone in the corner kind of nudge their mate and point over, or do you know what I mean? Kind of go, ah. And I always had this like demon on my shoulder that every time someone sort of double looked at me or nudged their friend and pointed over, that it was them going, oh, that's that twat who dropped the ball against Toulouse. Do you know what I mean? Whereas now, because of what happened with Leicester, you feel like it's more, he's the guy who hit the drop goal. Do you know what I mean? So it was always, but mentally it was tough, boys. But hey,
you know, when I hear you talk like that, it's, for me, it's a great piece to why you're so successful. You've always had this little chip on your shoulder, and you're so competitive with stuff like that, you know. And you're probably the hardest guy, because you know, the question about round one. I was like, Mikey, you're going to ask him about that? I was like, what was it in the semi-final? What was it again? I can't remember.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I just remember your face, obviously, afterwards. But the biggest thing is for you, and that's probably fueled you on and made you train harder. But let me tell you something, Fred. No one thinks of that and thinks about you. They know the quality of the player that you are, the competitor that you are, the maverick that you could do as a 10. I think that's the big thing. But that driver, I always felt that with you. I always felt like you had that chip, and the biggest chip is probably yourself. Like, you know, you hold yourself at such a high level. And that's why you look at that, a lot of guys that have been successful, international players, cricket, tennis, especially 10s in the game. Johnny Wilkinson, probably a George. There's a lot of similarities with you and them. But it's that continuously pushing yourself, and I never saw it more with someone. And honesty, fuck, you had so much honesty. Like, you talk about owning up and taking, you were so honest about everything with everyone that it was sometimes like,
too honest sometimes.
yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
It was almost like too honest. Like, I was like, fuck, you know. But I love that about you. I love the fact that you almost, it was like verbal diarrhea, and you need that from a guy. You need that sort of character, because I loved it. And again, hats off to you. It's something that I always, when I hear you talk like this again, I think you're going to have such a special career after rugby too, as a coach or as a mentor, or even in sports media. I always listen to your stuff that you're doing, because it's so interesting. It's so honest. Hearing you talk about Bath, about X, Y, Z, absolutely love it. What a pleasure. What a pleasure, my friend.
The only reason, like, the ball thing to me isn't a big deal anymore. It's just that what that happened and what like surrounded that would have hurt and broke a lot of players. But it's the fact that he was able to like bounce back and end up where he ended up. That's like a lesson in resilience and tenacity, which is class.
I think that's the thing, Mikey, quickly, just on that as well, just to wrap, is that, especially I think now in this day and age, with the way social media is, with this whole sort of like cancel culture and just how hard people can be on themselves. Like, don't get me wrong, I was harder on myself than anyone. Like, I'm not saying that I dropped that ball and I was out blooming doing the Macarena at 10 o'clock that night. Do you know what I mean? I fucking, like, I hurt, like, it hurt for a long time. It still hurts now. But
the Macarena.
But like, okay, what a dance that is. But like, do you know what I mean? It's one of those things though. I just see so many people. I was so bad at it early in my career. Of you miss a kick at goal or you make a mistake, you look at the big screen and your face is on it, and because you've done something wrong, you have to be seen to be cussing yourself, and you have to be like, oh, fuck it out. Do you know what I mean? Like, but now I'm like, but you just don't like. It does no one any good. Yeah. Like, and I'm not a big sort of sports psychologist kind of guy or anything like that, but like, it's like that thing where, fuck it, boys, it's a game of rugby at the end of the day. Like, you just got to bounce through it, and like, that's not to say you don't acknowledge it and you don't let it fester and let it, like, you know, it's definitely a driving force in my career. And don't get me wrong, you know, bar 20 seconds at the end of that final, you know, I could still be sat here now, you know, still sort of caught up on it. But, you know, if you hang in there long enough, it'll come back good again. You just got to fucking put the claws in and just hang on. And that's it.
100%. Keep going.
Mate,
No,
100%.
listen, we'll wrap it up, but yeah, I think I wanted to ask you like 3 lessons, but there's so much gold in there. I think we'll definitely get you on again.
Get him on again, yeah.
Get you on
Ask lovely
again.
Freddie if we can get him on again.
Next time we'll get you on in Japan.
Mate, boys, honestly,
different
anytime
time
you want to chat.
Go on a
Yeah,
crib
where-
tour, like check his crib out. You know, like empty crib,
Mate,
Japanese cribs.
come have a look, mate. Jeff, where are you now?
I'm in France. I'm just I'm coaching Belgium sevens, but I'm living in Bordeaux, just south of Bordeaux, in a little sailing town.
Why do you think
Fucking
he's so bad?
fucking wee, eh? On the old fucking Ram Rouge. Love
Oui,
a
oui,
Bordeaux.
monsieur.
No,
Wee
but
wee from a pal.
thanks so much, my boy, and we'll get you on again.
Boys, honestly, just give me a shout whenever. Always got time for you lads. And keep in touch. If you ever end up over these ways and that, let me know.
Thanks,
Yeah, mate.
brother.
Yeah.
Boys,
Freddie,
I've
Freddie,
honestly loved it.